Namaskar. Today we are taking up the chapter of Class 10 CBSE Communicative Reader, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Okay, just give me a moment so that I can adjust my screen and yes, I'm sure you're able to see the screen now. This is the poem. Yes, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, written by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Now, this poem was even in my syllabus when I was doing my graduation. And the original poem is somewhere around 700 sentences long. I had to study the entire thing. Okay, it's a very interesting poem. So now let's begin with this. We have two parts in this poem, part one and part two. There are actually seven parts, or maybe six. I don't recollect exactly. And we are going to study the first part. Okay, before that, let me give you the background of this poem so that you can understand the context in which this poem is being taught. Okay, this poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, written by Samuel Taylor Coleridge, is a pretty long narrative poem that recounts the eerie tale of a mariner who makes a fateful mistake who makes a fateful mistake, and then he has to undergo a profound spiritual journey. And as I said, that this is a narrative poem. So here, this poem is being framed as a story. This poem is being framed as a story and is being told by the mariner to a wedding guest. He stops a wedding guest who is on his way to a wedding and then narrates this story. Okay, now again, to give you a short context, uh, the mariner begins his tale by describing a sea voyage that he and his crew embarked upon. Initially, the ship sails smoothly, but soon they are blown off course by a storm and end up in the icy waters near the Antarctic. At this point, an albatross is a large seabird, appears and guides the ship out of danger. So the crew sees the bird as a good omen. However, God knows what comes over the mariner, and he, for no rhyme or reason, he shoots the albatross with his bow, kills it. This senseless act of violence, which the mariner commits, brings a curse upon the ship. At first, the crew condemns the mariner for killing the bird. But when the weather clears, they change their minds and justify the killing. This indecision proves disastrous for the mariners, and soon the ship is stuck in still waters. No breeze blows. So, in the old times, the ships used to, be powered by the wind. They used to have the sail and the mast and all that stuff. And what happens here is that the ship is stuck in the middle of the ocean without wind, without fresh water, and everything. And yeah, this reminds me of an idiom was born out of this poem, where one of the lines, where one of the lines of the poem runs as water, water everywhere, and not a drop to drink. So this line became very famous. And you're surrounded by water on all sides, yet you can't drink a drop. And then this poem also gave birth to an idiom, the albatross round one's neck. So what happens here is that when this ship gets stuck, I mean, on the, in the middle of the ocean, and is unable to move. So so the frustrated crew, what it does is it picks up the dead body of the albatross and ties it around the neck of the sailor. So that hangs as a dead weight on his neck, which constantly reminds him of his past. So today, when we have to say that somebody is carrying a burden or sin of his past life, then we say it's the albatross around his neck. Okay, you can note this idiom down. And okay, fine. Let me complete the rest part after the story. This is not there in your syllabus. And then the sailors, they suffer under the blazing sun, and the sea turns eerie, mysterious, and then what happens is the crew is haunted by supernatural visions. That's their punishment. And soon a ghostly ship, approaches them, and on that is, you can say metaphorically, death and life in death, are manning that ship, and they come for taking the souls of the mariners and all that stuff. And death wins. So all the crew members die. And life in death, I told you that the ship was manned by two persons, death and life in death. So life in death claims the mariner, and then it condemns him to a fate which is worse than death. That is eternal suffering. You won't die. Now here you would be wondering, what is this meaning of eternal suffering and not dying? See, you all have grown up now. So death actually is not a thing to be feared. Death is something which comes as a relief. Why death comes as a relief is a person has become aged, his organs aren't functioning, he's very weak, fragile, unable to move, and all that. So death comes as a solution. So if anybody is condemned to live for a very, very long period, then that is equivalent to hell. You don't have the energy, you don't have youth in your body, you don't have energy, your organs don't function, you are very weak, you are dependent on others, yet you don't die. There is a very interesting character in Mahabharata where you have Ashwathama, the son of Guru Dronacharya. He is condemned to this life. He commits a blunder. He commits a blunder. And for that punishment, as a punishment to that, he is condemned to live forever. And it is said that he is alive even today. Mahabharata took place somewhere around 3,000 years ago, if my memory serves me right. And no, it is not a myth, it is not a fable, it actually happened. So this mariner is who carries the curse. He is condemned to tell the story to everyone about what crime he had committed, about the crime he had committed, and to prevent the mankind from making such mistakes. So let's begin with the first part. It is an okay. I'll read these 4 lines. It is an ancient. Then I'll explain the meaning of each and every line. It is an ancient mariner, and he stoppeth one of 3. So it is an ancient mariner. Mariner is a sailor. Now here, look at the word used for him as ancient. Why has the word ancient been used here? The word ancient has been used to convey his age, his experience. So it is an ancient mariner, and he stoppeth one of three. Now, stoppeth here. Now, this English is not today's English. This is archaic English, which was prevalent around uh, six. No, we are in 24 now. So 2000, you can say around 500 years ago. Okay, around 500 years ago. So this ancient mariner, he stops one of three persons. Now, who are these three persons? So they are the wedding guests who are going to attend a wedding, and he stoppeth one of three. Now, why has the word stoppeth been used? Because it suggests his persistence. He doesn't care that these people, these guests, are going to a wedding. He persists on telling his story, the story which he is condemned to tell everyone. Then, by thy long grey beard and glittering eye. So, and he stopped at one of three, by thy long grey beard and glittering eye. Now, this is the description of the mariner who has got a long grey beard and a glittering eye. That means his eyes are sparkling. His eyes are shining. Now, here, why this has been mentioned, why this glittering eye has been mentioned? Because it appears that his eyes hold such a power so as to mesmerize or hypnotize a person who gets hypnotized by looking into his eyes, and he is unable to make or move or take any decision of his own. He is totally, you can say, bound by the spell. So this mariner looks at one of the wedding guests and stops him with his glittering eye, and the guest questions him. He questions the mariner. Now, wherefore stoppest thou me? Thou means you, me. And why are you stopping me? Thy means his or hers. Thy. Thou is you. The, thee is they. This is the old English. So the guest questions why the mariner has stopped them, and he expresses both curiosity and urgency. Okay, now here, the bridegroom's doors are opened wide, and I am next of kin. The guests are met, the feast is set. Mayst hear the merry din? No, here the wedding guest says that the bridegroom's doors are opened wide. That means the house where the marriage is taking place, the bridegroom's, I'm his relative. They are wide open for the guests to come. So the guest emphasizes the importance of the occasion. He says, and I am next of kin. That means I am a close relative of the bridegroom's, and explains that the wedding is about to begin. The doors have been thrown open for the guests. And he says, the guests are met. The feast is set. So the wedding guest says that the guests have gathered. The feast is prepared. And mayest hear the merry din, and you can hear the sound of celebration and laughter. Din means high, noise, sounds. Merry din, that means joyful sounds of high pitch. The guest is in a rush to join the festivities. It's clear so far? Okay. Then he holds him with his skinny hand. Who is this he? It's the mariner. The mariner physically stops the guest by grabbing him with his skinny hand. So this shows that the mariner is quite old, gray beard, glittering eyes, skinny hand. So this description, which Coleridge is revealing slowly, highlights the mariner's frail appearance, but it is in sharp contrast with his glittering eye. A person who is frail and weak will have sadness or weakness in his eyes. He won't hold a glittering eye. That means an eye which sparkles. So it means that some supernatural element is present in the mariner's eye. Okay, this full poem is about supernatural powers. And so what the mariner does is he physically stops the guest by grabbing him with his skinny hand, and then he begins his story with a simple statement. There was a ship, quoth he. Quoth means said. Quoth we use today as quote. Okay, so this Quoth, quoth means quote, Quoth. Quoth he, there was a ship, a very simple statement. He starts his story. Then, uh, sorry, hold off, unhand me, grey-beard loon. Eftsoons his hand dropped he. So, hold off. Hold off means stay away. Grey-beard loon. Loon is what we call today lunatic, a mad person. So, you grey-bearded madman, hold off, stay away, unhand me. Unhand me means release my hand. Unhand me. That means release my hand. Eftsoons, his hand dropped. Eftsoons means immediately. So what does the guest say to the mariner? He says, hold off, unhand me, grey beard loon. Eftsoons, his hand dropped he. So on hearing this, the mariner immediately drops the guest's hand without resistance. Okay, so eftsoons means immediately. Then he holds him with his glittering eye. The wedding guest stood still and listens like a 3 years child. The mariner hath his will. Now here. So what the mariner does is, on hearing this, he immediately releases his hand. But although he releases his physical grip, the guest is unable to move. He holds him with his glittering eye. So now his glittering eye has mesmerized, hypnotized the guest. And the guest, the moment the mariner released his hand, he should have walked away. But why didn't he walk away? Because he was now being held in place with the mariner's intense hypnotic gaze. The wedding guest stood still. The wedding guest is now frozen in place, compelled to listen, and listens like a 3 years child. So the wedding guest becomes as captivated when you tell small children, 3, 4, 5 years old, and you tell them stories, they listen to you in a captivated manner, forgetting the entire world. And they sit silent and hang on to every word that you utter. And this is how the wedding guest behaves and listens like a 3 years child without protesting. The mariner hath his will. So the mariner now has his is the wedding guest. The mariner has the wedding guest's will. Will means his desire. In other words, this means that he gains full control over the wedding guest's desires, thoughts, and everything. Because if he didn't have that full control over his thoughts and desires, what was the wedding guest desiring? To walk away, to go to the wedding. But the mariner's intense gaze had his will. The wedding guest was started behaving like a 3-year-old passive child, very calm, captivated, and hanging on to every word that the mariner has now to say. Okay, then let's go to the next one. The wedding guest sat on a stone. He cannot choose but hear, and thus spake on that ancient man, the bright-eyed mariner. So, what the wedding guest does now is, he is fully captivated. He sits on a stone. He cannot do anything because now he is totally captivated. He cannot choose anything else except to hear what the mariner has to say. So, this suggests that the mariner's tale has an almost magical hold over him. Okay. And thus spake on that ancient mariner. So the mariner, okay, continues to speak. Spake on means spoke on. The bright-eyed mariner. So this sentence means the bright-eyed mariner thus continued speaking. Now, why has the word bright-eyed been used twice? It has been repeated. We saw it earlier also. This is to emphasize the otherworldly, mystical presence. It means, as I told you earlier, that the presence of the supernatural. Okay, that is why this repetition is there. Now, let's come to the next lines. The ship was cheered, the harbor cleared. Merrily did we drop. Below the okay, now this is a very funny word. How do you pronounce this? This is to be pronounced as church. Okay, it's not Kirk. I'll tell you why. Below the church, below the hill, below the lighthouse top. So now the mariner goes back. You see, he started, there was a ship. The ship was steered, the harbor cleared. So now he's talking about a ship which is about to set sail. Which is about to set sail. So he says that my ship was about to sail. The harbor was cleared. Everybody was cheering. Okay, merrily did we drop. Below the church, below the hill, below the lighthouse top. So, merrily did we drop here means that we sailed by. Here, drop means sailed by. Below the church. Naturally, when you are on the river, the church is on a piece of land which is higher. So, when you sail, you will see the church which is above you. Now, why is this church spelled as Kirk? Okay, because CH also means ch, it also means k. So at that time they had it interchangeably. So I'll call this as church. Okay, so this is only for your explanation. Now, below the church, below the hill. So what he wants to now say is that the ship was passing the familiar landmarks, the church, the hill, below the lighthouse top, and the lighthouse. Now, why these three have been mentioned? The church, the hill, and the lighthouse top. These represent the last sites of home and safety. Naturally, when you're at home, you're safe. So these three represent the last sites of home and safety which the mariners saw before venturing out into the unknown open sea. Okay. सीधा होके बैठ जा सीधा होके बैठ डाउट है तो पूछ लेना ओके How? Why has the word below been repeated? Below has been repeated to show that the ship passed smoothly without any problems. Below the church, below the hill, below the lighthouse top. Okay. This reinforces that the weather was very calm and peaceful. Okay. Now, next, let's go to the next one. The sun came up upon the left. Out of the sea came he, and he shone bright, and on the right went down into the sea. Now, the sun came up upon the left. That means the sun rose on the left side. On the left side of the ship. Out of the sea came he. So that means the mariner and his ship, along with the crew, set sail before sunrise. And the sun came up from the left. Now, what is the meaning if the sun rises on your left-hand side? If the sun rises on your left-hand side, then what is the meaning? What is the direction? Figure out? Can you? Okay. If east is straight, you're looking towards, east, then what is on your left? It is south, isn't it? So, if the ship is sailing in the south direction, if the ship is sailing in the south direction, then what is going to happen? East will be on your left side. So, by this, he is telling you the direction of the ship also. So, the sun came up upon the left. Out of the sea came he. He is sun personified. And he shone bright. That means the whole day passed. And on the right went down into the sea. Went down into the sea. So that means the sun set in the west on their right hand side. So what's the direction now? What's the direction that they have taken? Okay. Now, I'm sure you, someone married? Okay. So when you are facing the south direction, then east is on your left and west is on your right. Clear now? Higher and higher every day till over the mast at noon. Till over, I forgot to highlight. higher and higher every day, till over the mast at noon. The wedding guest here bet his breast, for he heard the loud bassoon. So the mariner is continuing his story that higher and higher every day. So the ship went on sailing, and the sun rose higher and higher every day. So that means it used to reach its peak directly above the ship's mast till over the mast at noon. So that means the weather was very calm, it was very peaceful, there was no event going on, it was bright and sunny and everything. The mariner continued his tale, but suddenly what happens is a loud bassoon. What's a bassoon? A bassoon means the wedding music. So at this moment, somebody starts playing the loud wedding band, and the wedding guest is jolted out of his this one. You can say reverie. He becomes aware of the joyous wedding music, and he beats his breast in frustration. Why? Because he wants to go join the wedding. He wants to go join the wedding. So the wedding guest here bet his breast. That means the wedding guest here bet his breast, need not that he was going about hammering his breast like a gorilla. It doesn't mean that. Here it means to beat one's breast means to be frustrated. To be frustrated. And here, the wedding guest got frustrated when he heard the bassoon, music of weddings. So when he heard the loud music of the weddings, he became frustrated. And then it says, the bride hath paced into the hall, red as a rose is she. Nodding their heads before her goes the merry minstrelsy. Now, he says, he doesn't say, but it's there, that now the bride comes into the hall. She is as red as a rose. She has to walk down the hall between all the guests to go up to the altar. Right? So the bride, adorned in her wedding dress, enters the hall, and she is as beautiful as a red rose. Why she has been compared to a red rose? Because she is flushed, she is blushing, she is joyous, full of joy, joyful. Nodding their head before her goes the merry minstrelsy. Minstrelsy are the musicians. So the musicians are going forward, the bride is following them, and nodding their heads before her goes. Now, nodding their heads means they are nodding their head to the rhythm of the music that they're playing. So, nodding their heads, that means the musicians are nodding their heads and walking before the bride, and they go there. Now, you see here why this stanza has been introduced. This stanza is in sharp contrast with the mariner's ominous tale. Here is a guest who is torn between listening to the mariner's ominous tale or joining the festivity along with his relatives, guests, relatives, and friends. Okay, so the wedding guest he bet his breast, yet he cannot choose but hear. And thus spake on that ancient man, the bright-eyed mariner. This means that why this stanza has been repeated. You see, it's been repeated. This stanza, why is Coleridge highlighting the guest's frustration? Why is he saying that he cannot choose but hear? This is to show two things. First, that the wedding guest does not want to listen to the tale. He wants to join the wedding festivities instead. That's the first thing. The second thing here is that such powerful is the mariner's spell, gaze, that he is unable to escape its grip. So that means the mariner, though old, fragile, is much more powerful than the young wedding guest. He has the wedding guest totally under his control, his power. And regardless of what is going on, the bright-eyed mariner continues his story. And thus spake on that ancient man, the bright-eyed mariner. Again, bright-eyed has been repeated. Why? I told you earlier, because of the supernatural presence. Now, let's go to the next stanza. Now you see a sudden twist in the tale. And now the storm blast came, and he was tyrannous and strong. He struck with his o'ertaking wings and chased us south along. So everything was bright and sunny, and the sun was rising, setting, everything was okay. But all of a sudden, the peaceful voyage is interrupted by a violent storm. And the storm, which Coleridge calls as he, the storm blast, and he here is the storm blast. The storm was tyrannous. Okay, that means a tyrant, a very strict thing. That means this storm was not a very of a small intensity. It was very tyrannous. It had overwhelming power and control over the ship. It was very strong. That means a deadly storm blew over the ship. He stuck with his overtaking wings. Overtaking is overtaking. So he is stuck with, now here it has been personified. The storm has been personified as a strong and tyrannous ruler with strong wings, arms. So as a human being, it engulfed the ship. Why the word wings has been used? To show swiftness. Wings are faster than legs. So here the storm is being personified as a very huge, big, powerful, strong bird. So wings. Wings means all of a sudden, immediately, the ship was caught in the storm. The storm had completely, his overtaking wings. Here, overtaking does not mean you overtake the bus in driving. Here, overtaking means domination. You overtake, you take it under your grip. And struck with his dominating wings, overtaking wings, and chased us south along. Chased us south along means the ship was going in the southward direction. I told you that earlier. So here, the storm chased us south along means the storm pushed us southward, the ship southward, with full force. Now, if the storm was pursuing the ship and driving it forward, it is very natural that the ship can be steered off course. It may not stay on the same course. And this is what happens. With sloping masts and dipping prow, as who pursued with yell and blow, still treads the shadow of his foe, and forward bends his head. The ship drove fast, loud roared the blast, and southward aye we fled. So here, with sloping masts and dipping prow, Pro is the front of the ship. So the masts were sloping. Why they were sloping? Normally the masts are straight up vertical, but they were sloping. That means the wind was so strong that the masts which were vertical were sloping down. And if the masts bend, what is going to happen? The front of the ship is going to be submerged in water, dipped in water. That is why with sloping masts and dipping pro. Pro is the front of the ship. So when the masts are like that, then the ship which is like that will not go like that. That is the reason. As who pursued with yell and blow. So the ship is now with sloping masts, its pro front of the ship is in the water, as who pursued with yell and blow. So who is this who? It's the waves. As who pursued with yell and blow. So here pursued, you can even construe the storm also. You can construe the waves also. So with sloping masts and dipping pro, as who pursued with yell and blow, still treads the shadow of his foe and forward bends his head. So here, this who pursued with yell and blow is referring to the storm. That the storm pursued the ship, forced its head, that is the pro of the ship, into the water and chased it along with yell and blow. That means making huge noises and sounds, just like a man who treads the shadow of his foe. Foe means enemy. So the foe is the enemy is in the front. The storm or the man is pursuing it or treading his shadow. That means stepping on his shadow. Stepping on someone's shadow means to be very close to him. And forward bends his head. So you can visualize the scene of a man running with another man behind him, holding very close to him, holding the back of his head and pushing it down forward. This was how the storm took the ship. Okay, the ship drove fast, loud roared the blast, and southward we fled. So the ship, now here this is a comparison analogy he has given of the how was the storm chasing the ship. I have explained that. So what happened was that the ship rushed forward very fast with the wind roaring loudly. The ship drove fast, loud roared the blast. Blast here is the wind. The crew is helpless, and the ship went on in the southward direction. And southward we fled. Clear? And now there came both mist and snow, and it grew wondrous cold, and ice, mast high, came floating by, as green as emerald. Now, all of a sudden, what happens? The ship enters a region of mist and snow. That means this was a place which the mariner had not seen before. Why would anyone venture out into an area which is full of mist and snow? And it grew wondrous cold. Wondrous here means that the cold was so extreme that it added a sense of awe, fear, wonder. The environment was so harsh. In other words, you can say that the ship had reached the polar regions. Okay, where it's full of snow. and ice mast high came floating by. So ice mast high, that means there were chunks of ice which were as high as the ship's mast. A mast stands at a very great height above the ship. In other words, these chunks of ice were nothing but icebergs. So massive icebergs, which were as tall as the ship's masts, came floating by, and these icebergs were as green as emerald. Emerald is a precious gemstone which is green in color. Now, why the color green has been chosen? Because bright green is a color of the supernatural. If you see any supernatural paintings or drawings or movies, you will certainly find that luminous green color. I told you earlier that this full poem is about the supernatural. So now the ship reached a region where it was extremely cold. There were massive icebergs as high as the ship's masts floating by, and the icebergs were emerald green in color. Is it clear? Now let's go to the next line. And through the drifts, the snowy cliffs did send a dismal sheen, nor shapes of men nor beasts we ken. The ice was all between. Now, and through the drifts, the snowy cliffs did send a dismal sheen. Now, here, what does this mean? This means that the snow covered, one second. I thought this, yeah, okay. So, and through the drifts, the snowy cliffs, the snow covered, not snow covered, the sides of the iceberg. Through the steep sides of the icebergs, a dull, eerie light was being seen through the mist. It looked as if the massive icebergs were were emitting green light. Did send a dismal sheen. Sheen means light, dismal, a light which does not brighten you up, a light which actually makes you afraid, frightened, fearful, as though danger is present. It was all very eerie. So this the mood here is of desolation, of eeriness, of danger, as the sailors are surrounded by the sea, and through the drifts of the snowy cliffs. That means the icebergs through the drifts, that means through by the sides of the green light emitting icebergs. The boat slowly drifted by. Nor shapes of men nor beasts we ken. The ice was all between. So we means the sailors. The sailors couldn't see shapes of men nor beasts. That means there was no sign of any life, neither men nor animals. We couldn't see anything. The ice was all between. So that means we were surrounded on all sides by ice, and we were completely isolated with by ice, and we couldn't see through it. We couldn't see the shape of any man or any beast. In other words, we couldn't see any life around us. Then The ice was here, the ice was there. The ice was all around. It cracked and growled and roared and howled like noises in a swound. Now, you see, ice has been repeated a number of times. Why? This highlights the environment, the atmosphere, the surroundings in which the sailors found themselves trapped in. The ice was here, the ice was there, the ice was all around. So the crew of the ship is now entrapped in a frozen, hostile environment, reinforcing their helplessness. And the ice made terrifying sounds. It cracked and growled and roared and howled. So now you see, cracking, growling, roaring, howling are not noises which you would like to hear either in the middle of the night or in such a dangerous place. So here here Coleridge is the poet is trying to give you creating an image. He's trying to create an image of in your minds about the predicament in which the sailors found themselves in, like noises in a swound. Swound means a fainting fit. What is the meaning of this swoon word we use even today as swoon, swoon? He fell in a swoon. So, swoon, past tense, swooned, ancient English, swooned. So, Coleridge says that the noises were such which one would hear when he was about to faint. So here he suggests that the sailors were no longer in their right frame of mind. They thought that either they are going to faint or die at any moment. Such an eerie and otherworldly atmosphere was created. At length did cross an albatross, through the fog it came. As it had been a Christian soul, we hailed it in God's name. Now, here, after the sailors were trapped in ice, all of a sudden, an albatross appears. This large seabird emerges from the fog, and its arrival seems miraculous. Earlier, it was said neither men nor beasts. It was miraculous. And this gave hope to the crew. Oh, if there's a bird flying close by, maybe we we may get out of danger. As it had been a Christian soul, we hailed it in God's name. So, what do you mean by as it had been a Christian soul? This is this has and you know, in fact, this question was even asked in the exam also. What is the meaning of as it had been a Christian soul? Here, now pay attention to this answer. Note it down if you want. Here, the albatross is being welcomed as a good omen, like the grace of Lord Jesus. Okay. So, the sailors are very happy to see the albatross because he is the only sign of life that they have seen. And what happens here is that they call it a Christian soul. Christian soul means a good soul, one who believes in God. one who is good natured. It was, I mean, a Christian was defined as a person having a good soul and believing in God and not harming anyone. So, as it had been a Christian soul, we hailed it in God's name. So, we thought that the sailors thought that this was a good omen. It was a messenger or a symbol of divine intervention. It was a Christian soul coming to our rescue, and they hailed it in God's name. So they gave it the same respect that they would give it to God. Okay. It ate the food. Oh, sorry. Yeah. It ate the food it never had eat, and round it flew. The ice did split with a thunder fit. The helmsman steered us through. So the albatross now stays with the ship and it eats the food that's given to it by the sailors. It ate the food it never had eat. That means the albatross had never eaten such food, and it was for the first time it was eating it. So it could also mean that the albatross was very hungry, so it was eating it quickly. It flies around the ship and round it flew. So it flew round the ship and became a constant companion. And then what happens all of a sudden is the ice did split with a thunder fit. The helmsman steered us through. Helmsman is the person who steers the ship. He sits in the back and then he has that thing, and or he sits in the front with the he steered through. So it appeared as if the albatross was the guide. Okay, it was the protector. It had come to the rescue of the ship and it showed the way out of the danger in which the ship was trapped. That is why the ice did split with a thunder fit. All of a sudden, with a loud noise, the ice split, and the helmsman was able to steer the ship out of it. It allowed the ship to pass through the dangerous ice field. So it appeared as if the albatross had brought them luck and safe passage. Okay, now, and a good south wind sprung up behind. The albatross did follow, and every day for food or play came to the mariner's hollow. Now, earlier they were without breeze because not that they were in good breeze, but the storm overtook them and pushed them here, and here there was no breeze and they were all lying stuck. But here what happens all of a sudden is that a good favorable wind springs up behind them. Behind them means now it will drive the ship forward. So a favorable wind begins blowing from the south, and it starts pushing the ship along smoothly. And the albatross continues to follow the ship. The albatross. So, and a good south wind sprung up behind. The albatross did follow, and every day for food or play came to the mariners hollow. And every day the albatross, he comes to the sailors to eat, to play with them, and now came to the mariners hollow. Hollow here means hello. Hello here means shout or call. So whenever the mariners used to call out loudly, the albatross would appear and come to them and play with them or eat with them and all that. So in other words, Coleridge is trying to say that the albatross became a constant companion of the ship who would come at every beck and call of the mariners. Okay. In mist or cloud or mast or shroud, it perched for vespers 9, whilst all the night through fog smoke white glimmered the white moonshine. So, in mist or cloud or mast or shroud, it perched for Vespers 9. Now, this line means first let's understand what is the meaning of mist. We know the meaning of mist. What is a shroud? A shroud means a cloth which is used to wrap a dead body. But here, shroud means the sail. Why? Shroud is a big piece of cloth in which the body is wrapped. So here, what could a big piece of cloth be doing on a ship other than be the sail of the ship? So here, shroud means the sail. What is Vesper? Vesper is an evening prayer in the church, which is conducted every evening. So it perched for Vespers 9. That means for 9 Vespers. That means 9 days. Okay. Now, here, shroud also means sail and shroud also means cloud, something which covers. In English, if you look at the dictionary, it will say, a cloth covering a dead body. But anything that covers can also be called a shroud. So here, what is the essence of this stanza? It says that for 9 days, for Vespers 9, for 9 days, whether it was misty conditions or cloudy conditions, mist or cloud, the albatross sat on the mast or shroud on the sail. So that means the albatross was present or stayed with it had been 9 days that the albatross had been staying with the mariners. Regardless of the weather, whether it was misty or it was cloudy, it would be sitting either at the mast or at the shroud, wherever. It stayed, it had been turned 9 days. Okay. Whilst all the night through fog smoke white glimmered the white moonshine. So, during mist, during clouds, throughout the night, through the fog smoke white. If there was fog, through smoke, fog which was as dense as smoke, through that time also, through the moonshine. So here, mist or cloud, night, fog, smoke, white, moonshine. This is suggesting all the different types of weathers. So this means that the albatross stayed with the sailors, the crew, in all weather and conditions for 9 days. Whether it was day, it was night, it was misty, it was cloudy, there was fog, there was moonshine, the albatross stayed with them. Okay, now let's come to the next one. God save thee, ancient mariner, from the fiends that plague thee thus. Why lookest thou so? With my crossbow I shot the albatross. The wedding guest speaks. He interrupts the story and he says, he is moved by the mariner's plight. So he stops him here and says, God save thee. That means God bless you. May God save you. You have faced real bad time on that ship. He thinks, the wedding guest thinks, that the mariner is tormented by some inner demons. That means that the mariner is suffering. At that time, you did not have that PTSD, isn't it? Post-trauma stress syndrome disorder. So maybe you're suffering from your inner demons, because you came out from such an eerie, mysterious, dangerous, perilous voyage, and through ice and snow and all that. So the wedding guest prays for the mariner and says to him that, may God save you from your inner demons which are troubling you. Such a good hearted person. And then see what the mariner has to say. Why lookest thou so? With my crossbow, I shot the albatross. So the mariner, with a look of guilt or anguish, he says, why are you looking at me like that? Why are you praying for me? I killed the albatross with my crossbow. Such a sudden twist and turning point in the story. The mariner confesses that he killed a bird which had caused no harm to him, which had come as a harbinger of good luck, saved him and the ship from all dangers, and he killed him. That's the end of part one. Let's take a break, and then I will continue with part two. Okay.